I'm fantasy author Elle Penelope, and welcome to My Imaginary Friends, a look behind the scenes of an author mapping the worlds in my head and making them a reality. Hello, friends. Today is Friday, September 6th, 2019, and this is episode 31 of My Imaginary Friends. I'm Leslie. So this week's best thing is a tie. I was able to go climbing this week. I'm so grateful. So I ended up going yesterday. I had tried to go before, but various things stopped me. And so I got my new braces in for my wrists, and they're made of neoprene, which is like the material from like beer cozies. It's extremely hot, but I took out the metal part that makes it a splint, so I could still move my wrist a little bit, but it's still very tight. And I went to Boulder, and I was doing V intros, and they have V zeros. I don't remember there being V zeros before. So you have the very easiest one, the intro, then 0, 1, 2, up until I saw some tens. I think it might just go up to V10. I'm not exactly sure what the highest level is. Now, at my normal, before I was injured, I was only doing V3s, maybe a V4, which is below my actual ability. Compared to the ratings are different when you climb on the wall with the ropes. But because there's no ropes, I don't like to boulder because I don't like to fall, because I did fall and I hurt my hip and that was not fun. So I usually climb below my ability, but now injured, I'm climbing way below my ability because V intros and V zeros were fine. I climbed a V1 and I was huffing and puffing, so out of shape. But the good news is that I can do it. I have to take it really easy. So I only climbed for about 15, 20 minutes yesterday, and I could feel it. I'm sore today. My hands are soft. My calluses are soft. My fingers are very tired. And bouldering is harder on my hands anyway because there's no rope, and so I'm holding on tighter, even though it's relatively short. But still, falling 10 or 12 feet is not fun, as I've experienced. But the actual climbing was really fun. Even like little baby climbs. V0, really. So I'm going to try to do that a couple times a week and, rebuild the calluses that I worked so hard to build. And the strength. And I really feel it in my forearms because with my wrist immobilized, it puts a lot more pressure on my forearms. And so my wrist is a little bit sore. I didn't have any sharp pains, but I think I feel good about it. I'm trying to listen to my body and yeah, so we have success. So happy about that. Because I still can't do yoga. I'm going to try some like wristless yoga where you kind of just do, what is that, dolphin instead of downward dog, where you're on your forearms instead of on your hands. Because I can't still put bare weight on my wrists. So no pull-ups for a while, no push-ups, none of the things that I usually do. Still can do cardio, which I hate. But I do miss regular yoga. But yeah, take it slow, still healing, working on exercises to strengthen my wrists again. And hopefully not too long from now, I will be able to use them regularly and they will be good as new, or as good as they were a few months ago. Not new, they're still several decades old. But yes, very happy. The other this week's best thing was Carnival Row, which is the show on Amazon Prime that's like a fantasy show with fairies and stuff that I really loved. I adored it. I'm going to actually watch it again because after I watched it, I was kind of obsessed. And so I was reading all these articles about it, and one of them said that on Amazon Prime, there's an X-ray feature where you can pause the scene and there's like behind the scenes details. So I want to watch it again and read all those details. Now, it's been kind of mixed in terms of other people reactions to the show. I've seen a lot of people who have loved it and a lot of people who haven't. But for me, it really worked. And partially is because it reminded me of Earthsinger Chronicles. Like, it reminds me of my books in that, so part of this show, it's like a Victorian-esque era, which is a little bit before my era. Mine is like alternate 1920s, but like, similar. And Second World, so it's sort of a Londonish, but it's called the Burg, and there have been, the humans have tried to colonize, essentially, the Fey lands, and there's different races of Fey. There's fairies, there's fauns or pucks, there are centaurs and some other creatures, which we kind of see, but mostly it's fairies and the pucks. I'm not sure if puck is a derogatory word. When I looked it up, I realized their actual name is fauns, and they only say fauns once, to my recollection, in the show. But they're kind of like they have horns and hooves, and they're, I guess like Mr. Tumnus, right? But not quite, because they have totally human faces except for the horns. Anyway, so the complaint about the show is that it's too political, and it's just hits you over the head with its message, because the Feylands have been conquered by another group of humans, and so they're refugees, and so they've come to this land of humans, the Burg, as refugees fleeing their land, and they're second class citizens. They're relegated to being servants or prostitutes or just the lower classes, and they're in this kind of ghetto. The Carnival Row is the name of the place where they're primarily live. And there's all sorts of, prejudice and racism against them, and it's very analogous. And so for a lot of people, and I've seen Black and white people saying that it's too political and it's too heavy-handed. And I just didn't think so. But I guess if you didn't like that, you might not like Earthslinger Chronicles if it's too heavy-handed, because there is a full-on refugee crisis in the series, and that becomes very important. And so for me, it wasn't heavy-handed because that's the core of the story that they are telling. They're telling a story about inequality and about prejudice, and the main love story with Orlando Bloom and Cara Delevingne. She's a fairy and he's a human, and that's not even really the way that it's described had me feeling like that the love story was going to be prominent, which it is, but it also isn't. It's primarily the show is like a mystery, almost thriller kind of, but mystery show, because Orlando Bloom is a detective. And so it's taking place in this world where these other things are happening. But overall, it wasn't heavy-handed to me because that's what it's about. It's not like there's another story going on and then they're sticking in these issues, like quote unquote issues that, it's like, it's about inequality and politics. Like there's a theme, the whole storyline where these characters are in their parliament, and the power dynamics in the different parties. One is more pro-Fae and one is definitely anti-Fae. And that's just the core of the story. So you can't take that part out and have it be the story that they were telling, which means that for me, it wasn't heavy-handed, because this is literally the story that they were trying to tell. They're telling a story about, racism and it's kind of it's a similar, still very different from Earthslinger Chronicles and what I'm trying to do, but there is a lot that's the same. And so that's why it worked for me, because that's the story that I'm telling. And so if people don't want to have any politics or refugees or inequality or prejudice in their books, then don't read mine. But yeah, I loved it. I loved the world building. I loved the characters. I was really just invested, and the fact that it's kind of a racially blind casting, and so there are like Black and brown people all throughout, which it was one of the reasons I wanted to watch it, because I saw in the trailer, I was like, oh, there's brown people. Because there's another, I think, a show on Netflix called The King that's coming out that is more medieval fantasy. I guess it's fantasy, actually. I'm not sure if there's magic or not, but it's medieval. And I looked at it and I was kind of interested, but like the trailer is just lily white. Like there's nobody there. And I was like, in this day and age when we know that there are people of color in medieval times everywhere, there's not really an excuse. And maybe they're hiding some people that, are not in the trailer and that are going to show up in the show. But I'm not going to watch the show, because at this point in my life, I'm a little bit tired of just seeing all white things that don't need to be all white. And so I appreciate that the show is very diverse, and that the prejudice isn't racially based. It's species based. It's Fae, and there's Black and white fairies and fauns and everything else. And one of the storylines is this Black actor who is one of the fauns, who is rich and moves into the rich neighborhood. And I liked that. It's very interesting, tiny spoiler, but not really. They're doing something interesting with that character in that he's like a conservative. So which makes sense, because when people, especially when Black people get money, they tend to become conservative. Like, you're more conservative when you have when it's more advantageous for you to want tax cuts, for example. So there was a really cool scene where, this character who is looked down upon, like, how could you move into our neighborhood? And you have this kind of liberal human who's coming up to him expecting him to be liberal. And he pushes back against that. And he was like, why would you think I would, why would you assume I would, agree with you on this, this, and this? And he proves that he's actually conservative, which is a little Uncle Tomish because it is a Black actor playing this fawn character. But it's also very realistic because that's actually what happens. And it makes sense for the character. And so I thought that a lot of the choices made sense for the characters, and I enjoyed and appreciated the character development. But for a lot of people, it was also slow, and they had a hard time getting into it. So yeah, everything isn't for everybody, but I'm really excited about like going through it again and watching it again. It's already been greenlit for a second season. It's only 8 episodes, so who knows when that's going to come out? I guess another year. But so if you like politics in your fantasy, and if you're here, hopefully, if you've ever read my books, or if you haven't, if you're thinking about reading them, heads up, there is, I guess, what you would call politics in them. I mean, for me, it's so natural because it's just life. I have fantasy reflecting real life, and I'm Black in America. And so there's things that I'm thinking about all the time. And I'm sure there are people who feel like I'm being heavy-handed too. And, that's perfectly valid. Everyone has a different reaction to things, and everyone has things that they're looking for in their entertainment, and that might not be what you're looking for. But for me, super worked. I loved it, and I'm super excited about it. Writing update. So I successfully finished the 20K in 5 days challenge. And I ended up writing something like 20,500 words in 5 days. I could have done more. I slacked off one of the days because it was a lot, but it was totally doable. And I'm really, really glad that I did it. It taught me, or reminded me, because things I knew from doing NaNoWriMo, which is 50,000 words in 30 days. Which now is like nothing, like 1,666 words a day. A few years ago was a huge achievement for me. And now it's like, yeah, of course, because you're a professional and you have to produce. And it's not that hard, but 4,000 words was a little bit daunting. But it ended up I knew I could do it, but it ended up working out really well. And so I'm thinking of doing it again. And if I can, I've written today, I started waking up at 6, and because I know I've been putting it off. Like I've known that I've needed to, but I've been extremely lazy. And but time is ticking. It's September, and I need to get at least this first draft out of the way. So I'm going to see if I can finish this first draft by next week. I'm leaving for this conference in Nashville on Thursday. And I really would like to finish the fast draft of this manuscript, Earthsinger Book 4, by the time I leave. So I don't have to worry about it when I'm there. And so I'm estimating about another 25,000 words I need. And it's 7 days counting today. So I've already written 2,800 words or something today. So it should be, it's ends up being 3,500 words over the 7 days, which is only a little bit more than what I usually do, or what I try to do when things are going well. So that is the new goal. And I feel confident about that. I feel good about that. If I go strong, if I write first every day, then I can meet that. And 25,000 words might not be enough to finish the whole draft, but I will be very close, I think. So that is the goal. And the other things that I learned from 20K in 5 days were that I just really need to push through on the fast draft, especially when things are feeling wrong. Because by day 3, I was in the middle of a scene and I'm like, there's not enough conflict. There's not enough meat happening. Like, I'm writing the scenes that I outlined, but they're still not right. And, I've been stopping and trying to fix them. And that kind of goes against the philosophy of the fast draft, which I know works for me. Because I also hate to waste the words. And so I was starting to feel like I'm just typing just to get the word count. But I wrote through it And by the end of those scenes, I have kernels of what they need. I still definitely need to go back and amp up the conflict a lot in that part of that storyline. But by not stopping and by pushing through, I think I have the seeds there that will give me what I need to make those changes, and which is the entire point of this whole fast drafting thing. So I just need to continue to push through and to stop stopping. And like, even when I know it's wrong, if I have enough to write a whole scene, even if I don't feel like it's right, or if I don't know everything that's happening, I think I just need to push through until I get to the end of this draft. And then I can begin the long road of revision. Because what I really wanted to do is have a revised version in November, so I can get beta reads. It doesn't look like I'm going to be able to do that, because even if I make my goal this week of having the fast draft done, revising it in a month and a half is probably just not possible, as long as this book is going to be. The revision, which for me is rewriting, like, I'll have a first draft that is extremely messy, and each scene, when I do the revision from the stage, the last time I did this, I mean, it can take 3 to 4 hours per scene. So, and sometimes I won't even be done with the scene at that point. So, and it's extremely, like, taxing mentally and creatively. And you can't really rush that. You just have to sit down and do it every day, and maybe at least 5 days a week, because it's tough. So just physically having the time and the focus and the creative energy to do that, it'll probably take me into November. So maybe a beta read in December, which is still okay, because this book is due February 3rd. A beta read in December gives me a month to revise off of feedback, which should be enough time theoretically, depending on how the revision goes. So that is the writing update. I was super happy about the 20K in 5 days, and it was just the jumpstart that I needed. So, yay. I mentioned transcription last week, and I did try Descript, trying to see how much time it was going to add. And it ended up doubling the time I needed to edit. So I didn't even finish the whole thing. I was like, after I timed it, and I had gone through like 10 minutes of audio, the recording, and it had taken 20 minutes, which is double the time usually. It takes me time like half. Right, let me do this calculation. If my podcast is 30 minutes, I expect it to take 45 minutes to edit and not an hour. And that is too much time. So because I have to clean up so much, and because not just I talk fast, I also, it's just very colloquial. And so there's punctuation. And so cleaning up words, adding punctuation, making it readable is time consuming. So it's nice that I can edit the video and the audio inside of while doing the transcript, but cleaning up the actual transcript is just too time consuming. So I will have to table that, which I thought I might have to do, but I thought it was worth at least giving it a shot, and maybe come back to it later. At some point, maybe have someone else do it when I can afford to have someone else do it. So yes, that is something still would be nice to do, and I think this is still a good method to do it, but right now it would eat up time. And I really enjoy doing the podcast. Like, I look forward to it, but if it takes too long to do, then I think I would stop enjoying doing it. So that is the update for the moment. Another exciting development this week is there is a new co-working space opening up close to my house. So I live in suburban Maryland, and the co-working spaces, there's some in Baltimore, there's some in DC, and then like Silver Spring, which is right outside of DC. But any of those places is like a 20 or 30 minute drive for me to get to. And I've thought about, getting out of my home office and having another space to go to write specifically would be great. Like, I have a laptop that a laptop obviously, but I do most of my work on my iMac. I have a 27-inch iMac for my regular business, and they sync and everything, but I don't like to do website stuff on my laptop when I don't have to, like when I'm not traveling. So I would do most of my business stuff still in my office, but the writing, I could just bring my laptop, bring my Alpha Smart, go someplace else. And I think that could be helpful. Like, I don't, coffee shops don't work for me really. I think I've talked about this before. I drink so much tea, I go to the bathroom so much, and I don't like to leave my laptop out in a coffee shop, just away, if I'm going by myself. If I'm writing with someone else, then of course, hey, watch my stuff for me. Um, so that is a deterrent to me leaving the house to write. But a co-working space is, private. Like, you have to have a key card to get in, so I'm not worried about anyone stealing my stuff. Not that I think anybody would, but like Laura Kate had I don't know where she had her stuff stolen from, but she recently lost her laptop, and I saw her on social media. That's traumatic. I mean, I back up everything in triplicate. So I have Dropbox, I have Carbonite, I have Time Machine on my Mac. Everything is backed up in at least 3 places, because if you've ever lost anything, and I, knock on wood, I've never lost a manuscript, but I don't want to. And so even if something, God forbid, would happen to my laptop, I have everything. My Scrivener runs off of Dropbox, so that I can go back and forth between multiple computers. And so it's always backed up. But I don't want to lose my laptop. I don't want to have anything stolen from me, because that would be very painful emotionally. And so anyway, there has not been a co-working space within a reasonable driving distance from my house. And reasonable to me is 10 minutes. 15 at the outset. If it's further than that, it doesn't make sense for me to commute to do something I could do easily at home without spending that extra half an hour a day. So it's probably not going to open until closer to the end of the year, but it is like 9 minutes away, and I'm super excited about it. One thing I do wish it was more like Paragraph in New York. So there's a writing space, a writing co-working space in New York called Paragraph that I went to a few months ago when I was up there for something. I just did you get like a free trial day, and it was so amazing because it is quiet. So the space where you work is completely a quiet room. No phones, no talking. If you have to talk, you go outside into the kitchen, which is the common area. And so it's a big space. There's a bunch of cubicles that they have, and you just go in, you sit down at a cubicle, so you can't really see anybody. You've got a desk, a light, an ergonomic chair, which coffee shops, like I can barely write in coffee shops anyway, because the tables are so high. It's like you're typing like up by your nose, because for some reason, like a Panera especially is bad for that. But this was like the ideal space. I was there for 5 hours that day, and I got so much done because you're around people, but it's quiet and you're all working. And there's something like psychologically wonderful about that. And if you've read Deep Work by Cal Newport, he describes in there like kind of like the perfect co-working space, which this is, which would be quiet. And I forget, I'm actually going to, I listened to that book on audiobook. I'm going to read it again because it had so much good stuff in it. But yeah, so that is like the ideal of all spaces. And if you're in New York and can go there, it's wonderful. I can't remember how much it costs, but if I was there, I would pay whatever it took, because I just found that silent room with a bunch of people working, and you just see people as you pass by the aisles. And there's just something about that, like, that made me so productive. And then you can go out and there's coffee and tea and have your lunch, and you can sit and talk, and then, talk on the phone if you need to. So this is not that. This is like a regular co-working space. But a lot of the co-working spaces that I've seen, especially like in Baltimore, kind of prioritize letting you meet people, and they want to foster, I don't know if they're trying to push you together to create businesses, but like networking. They're trying to foster networking. And I don't want to network. I just want to go someplace that's not my house and write quietly and then come home and do more work. So I am very hopeful about this place. And whenever it opens, I will be there. A couple of days, I'll do like the trial plan to make sure that it's not weird and that the chairs are comfortable and ergonomic. But yeah. Another thing that I saw that was kind of cool this week was a tweet that N.K. Jemisin sent about fanfic. And I guess maybe she does this periodically. It was saying how she's totally pro fanfic. Like, please, people, if you want to write fanfic of her work, go for it. She can't read it, but she likes to know that it's out there. And yeah, I missed the whole fan fiction thing. Like, it seems like it would be up my alley, because I do mental fanfic. I just don't ever write it down. But like if something ends in a way that I'm not satisfied with, or I want to, have the characters live on in my mind, I will just have like mental stories that I'm telling myself for the next few days or something after I've watched a movie or read a book that I really liked. But I never got into reading fanfic or writing fanfic. And I think it was probably because of grad school. Like my grad school was very intense because I worked full time and went to grad school. And there were years when I think those were the years where I would have, gotten into it, and I was out of my mind busy. But I share her idea about like, yeah, if anybody ever wanted to write fanfic, that would be like the highest form of flattery. I know that someone asked her why she wouldn't be able to read it, and it was the same reason why authors, like published authors, can't really, like outside of critique groups, from what I've heard, you're not really supposed to read people's manuscripts because just in case one day they sue you because they think that you've taken an idea of theirs. And apparently somebody got sued off of fanfic. Like, I don't know how that works because they're taking your intellectual property technically illegally anyway. And then an author got sued for doing something that the fan fiction writer had done. I didn't really look into it that much, but I know that there's a higher liability, I think, when you're a published author for being a target of people saying that you stole stuff. So it's probably a good idea not to read any of the fan fiction based on your stuff. But if it ever existed, I think that would be the coolest thing ever. So if anybody ever wanted to write fanfic of any of my stuff, go for it. You can tell me it exists, but I can't read it. All right. So I'm tired already. It's 11:30 in the morning. It's all good. I need to write one more sprint, maybe another 1,500 words, trying to get to at least 3,500 a day. And something like that. I think one more sprint would do it. And try to move towards this goal of finishing this fast draft by next week. I'm in Nashville next week. Oh, other events coming up. I'll be in New York September 22nd for Brooklyn Book Festival. I think word on the street is, and it's not confirmed, so normally I wouldn't even say anything. Well, maybe we'll speak it into the universe. We'll speak it into existence. So word on the street is that I will be at New York Comic Con. I have no dates. I have no other information than that. So stay tuned for more. But that should be very interesting. And that is October, the first weekend in October. So this is Leslie popping in from about an hour in the future. And once I finished recording, I did get the email confirming my New York Comic Con. So I will be there. I will be signing. And future days, we'll see if I'm doing anything else. But I will be there. Check my calendar for details on my website. And now back to Leslie from the past. And then if you're in Norfolk, Virginia, or the Hampton Roads area, I'm doing a book launch for Whispers of Shadow and Flame at the end of October. So check my website for calendar information. I'm doing a whole East Coast thing. New York, Maryland, Virginia. But my events for September and October are looking intense. Like, yeah, it's gonna be a lot. But it's fun. Book launch is October 1st. I'm doing a pre-order campaign. So if you pre-order the book, I'll send you swag, and I will link to that in the show notes with all the other links of things I've talked about today in the show notes. So that is really it. I hope you have a wonderful week and happy reading. For episode show notes and to learn more about me and my books, go to lpenelope.com. Subscribe to My Imaginary Friends wherever you get your podcasts, and check out the video episodes on YouTube. And please leave a rating and review to help support the show.